Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this sequence of Python Pandas interview sample questions, I'm going to share the third question of the series that I had promised before. So the agenda of this video is going to be first introducing you with the questions that I'm really going to cover, which are going to be two questions. Basically, question 3 is broken into two parts of it, and then we'll start solving them in detail. Let's quickly jump with that. But before doing, let's have a quick recap, which might be a prerequisite for you to go through in order to better understand the question that I'm discussing now, which will be basically making sure that you have all the foundation about the data set. I always believe strongly if you know your data set very well, you can understand the technical tool being used for that and expect the output on your own with less effort and less assistance. So please do watch these videos that you see on my screen. You have to actually watch all three of them, but still if you think you want to skip few of them, you can start with part 2. In part 2 I have discussed the question number 1 that you see, which customer has placed maximum number of orders. And yeah, I have also explained or tried to explain about the data set that you should be knowing. In the second question, which is discussed in part 3, that tells you about how to find an weighted average sales by line of business. By the way, if you are planning to give any interview question, attempt any interview sooner, this sort of questions are very frequently asked, and especially the second one, for the simply reason to see if you really understand and value the vector properties of data frame, or that is also called vector properties or propagation properties of the data frame, which if you know, you can do or you can solve any complex computation with just linear operations using data frame. Otherwise, it's likely like any other programmer you would approach with a for loop. So I'm going to show today also how can you skip the for loop approach and utilize vector operation properties of the data frame. I will also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of both the scenarios. Let's quickly jump to that. Right, let's see the questions that we are going to take today in specific. As I said, there are two parts of it, and let's talk first one them that says, find the customers who are inactive. Well, what do you mean by inactive? That should be a first question. And please understand your question and expected output first before going to implement that. If you are not clear with what you are trying to achieve, then it will be very hard time for you to even implement your code. So understanding how your input and what the input you have, how that is related with your output, if you can do or if you can explain that on paper, then implementing it through any programming language is just a cakewalk. So first you have to understand, okay, so you have a customers who are inactive. So here the definition of inactiveness is any customer who placed the order last time 1 year back, before 365 days. After last 365 days, they haven't placed any order. So here we are considering those as inactive. However, your organization can give you a different threshold and you have to modify your logic as per that. If you think your manager, somebody came up with you and gave you this question to find the inactive customers and haven't mentioned of this threshold, it will be your duty, your job as a data scientist to raise that question. And a lot of the time, let me tell you a very trick that goes. This threshold is very difficult to find out, and nobody might be even knowing this threshold. So it will be your job to even find out first the threshold and then the customers who are inactive. So how do we do that? Okay, I'll give you a hint of it later on. Right, the second part of the question that I'm going to discuss will be find the gap between the first and the last orders for each customer. You know, a customer can place first time some order, and that time will be some date, and then maybe in between will not place some order, then again will come back. I mean, it can be anything, but yeah, there will be one last date, that means the last most order placed. So you are supposed to find the difference between these two. You might be thinking, oh, it's easier, we just put it in a loop and do it. Well, the idea and the purpose of this video is not to make you familiar of how to use loop, that we already know. Rather, how to do these operations utilizing the vector or propagation properties of data frame. And trust me, if you write your code with utilizing these properties of your data frame, your code will be way faster than how you choose to implement using loops. So that's the reason knowing this vector operations of data frame is very important to come up with efficient code, and of course in lesser coding. That's another advantage. You really don't have to code and come up and create many variables. You can do all that with one or two variables, which I'm going to share with you. Now, if you are still new to the data that we are going to use today, this is the data I'm talking about. This data represents, just to give you a brief outline of it, it has many, it has customer ID, right? You can think of this data like any retail data where you have many customers and they place order on certain dates, and then you'll have order ID generators like here for every order that you place, and then it will be associated with some order date, and of course line of business. So line of business becomes very important for the digital or online businesses, or businesses that were basically online shopping you do. Not every not for the retail or in-person shopping that you do. So line of business you can think of like it's possible that you place an order to Amazon, directly going to the Amazon website, or you may place the order, or maybe you reach to the website via a link on a third party website. And it's also possible that you place the order through the app. So here app is one line of business. Website itself is another line of business. Coming through a third party or placing the order through a third party will be a third line of business. And like that, there can be many lines of business on an online order. And then total sales. So every order that you place, there can be many items in an order, but here what we are storing is a total sales corresponding to that order ID. We are not concerned here about how many items are being ordered in the particular order. All we are worried about the total accumulated sales amount that's being sold in this particular order. Yes, but in a real time, the data need not be so prepared as you see here. There could be like somebody can give you multiple tables, one table having user details, another table having just the transaction detail, the third table having the product detail, the fourth table having maybe every item description detail, and it will be your task again to join them together and come up with a data set or data like something similar which quietly have everything aggregated at a better form, right? So this is the data set, and we are going to solve our question number 3, part A and part B, with respect to this order date. So if you are not familiar with how date level processing happens or date time level data type processing happens in data frame, you'll see today. One more thing, let's quickly jump with the coding part. Hopefully you are clear with the expectation now and with the input. So yes, our all the operations, for most of our operations, order date is going to be considered. And once we are done with the processing on the order date, based on the processed values, you are going to pull out your customer ID. So what sort of operations it will involve? It will be a kind of some sort of manipulation, select operation, even aggregate may required. And let's do that. All right. Cool. Let's jump to the first part of the question. that says find the customers who are inactive. If you remember, I just said here the definition of an inactive customers would be those who placed order 1 year back, before 1 year. So that means 366 days and above that. So before doing that, let's see our data. As you know, that's our data that I'm going to use. And as I said, we have one order date. Now here important thing is multiple thing. Since order date represents a date time information, and what I'm looking to find how many days it has been from today for the date when the order was placed, right? You understand? In order to find who are the inactive customers, how will you decide? First, you have to find out the maximum or the last order date for every customer. Do you agree? First, you have to, so let's say you have a customer one, it's called one, that could have placed 5 orders in 5 different dates. Let me call those dates as in the order of the date itself 1, 4, 7, 9, and 10. Okay, these are the dates. So if you ask me when was the last order placed, if somebody can ask you that, what that would be, that will be 10th. So in order to find when was the how long it has been for a customer who placed the order, you have to subtract this date from today's date, isn't it, to get that, to satisfy this definition of inactiveness. But if you see your data, it has all the dates. For example, have a look for this customer 152, I call that. It has multiple orders first. All right, so we have order in here for this scenario, the order is placed on the same date, so it does not make that difference. Let's pick up another one where the date can vary. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting one. If you look at the customer, can you see the highlighted one? 86225. It has placed many orders. Like, can you follow the cursor? And of course, it would have some more. There are dots. Disregard. So the this order is placed on October 28th, 2021. This next one is placed in November 11, 2021, then 12th, then 16th November, and then 25th November. So for this customer, assuming my date is placed, order date is in this ascending order, the last order that was placed by this customer 86225 would be 25th November 2021. So what is today's date? Let's assume today it's 23rd of November. So from 23rd November 2022, if you subtract 25 November 2021, how many days difference you get? Roughly lesser than 365 days. Correct? Lesser than, it would be less than 365 days. So can I mark this customer? Can I mark this customer 86225 as an inactive customer as per my definition of inactiveness? No. I'm going to mark only those customers as an inactive or flag them out who have placed order after more than this, right? So first thing to do, I have to make sure I discard all these dates from my data. I should have only the last order date corresponding to every customer. That will be the first job for us to do, first part of it or first step of it. And then once I have corresponding to every customer, we'll see how many unique customer we have, so many unique record we should get. Then next task will be generating today's date or getting today's date. And once we have that date available, then next task will be subtracting from today's date to the last order date. And once we have the difference in terms of days, then next task will be to filter the data based on that difference. Do you clear? Yes, it's a multi-step process, but everything you see, you have to break down. If you really ask me, you can note down in case if you're confused. First task will be to find last order date for every customer. Let's keep that. Second task will be to get today's date. Okay, why I'm saying get today's date? Can't I just randomly? I know today's date. I'll hard code. No, you have to write your code so generic that even tomorrow, if I'm running, I should have something correctly. My results should come without any change. So to generate today's date, the third task will be difference. You have to take difference between step 2 and step 1. That will give you basically nothing. Let's call a day's difference. So I call it day's diff. Okay. Once I have the day's diff, I have to filter data based using day's diff. And do you know how to do that? Well, we'll do it. I'll show you. Again, this won't be in a straightforward ways. You can do that. But trust me, this looks to be very difficult, very difficult. So many things to do. But when we'll actually start coding, it will be hardly 10 to 12 lines, not more than that. Given that we are doing so many transformations, had we not done so many transformations, most of the task in fact, most of the tasks with working with data frame becomes very easy. Let's quickly do the first part. All right, let's see the first part. So I have been given data frame, but to perform date level operations, we cannot treat them data as any numeric data because every date have its some month has 30 days, some other months have 31. If we treat them as a numeric data, it will take a fixed count, which is not good. So as a tip for you, every time you get a date data, convert it to date time. By default, Pandas does not convert your date related information as a date type. It will treat it as a string type or in technically object type. So we have to do first is transformation of my dates. Right now I have a single date column. So I'm going to do just for this, but tomorrow if you have many such, you have to do for all of them, right? Quickly, let's do that. So df dot order date, that's my column. Here you see, if you see also, if you display as a series, that will say object. I have to convert it to a date type. How can I do it? So to do that, you have in pandas, we have something called to_date type. Can you see that? PD stands for pandas. It's an alias of pandas. So pd.toDate type and just pass this object. Now, quickly you can shift your focus here. It's object right now, correct? Okay, let's see. If you did not miss that, it turned out to be a date time. Now you might be wondering, okay, what will happen if I don't convert? Please do convert. We'll discuss maybe in some other videos what will happen if you don't convert, how complex your life will become if you don't convert. Right now, convert. One second thing more you can notice is that the format had changed. That's okay, but it is a date time. What that means, so if you want, you can reformat it to your original data shape. That is okay. But for the questions that I'm going to discuss here, that format doesn't matter. What matters is whether it's date type or not. So I've converted it to a date type. Now let's quickly generate the data for the second part and see. So the data that I got here, I have to overwrite to my original data. Then only it will make difference. You can save as a new copy as well. That's up to you. But I'm going to override. And you see after this operation, this is date type, right? So this is just to show you. And right now, let me quickly jump to the second part. That's step 2, which will be generating today's date. To do that, you can import or you can make use of date time package, which has a method called date. And then you have to, date time has a lot of functions to deal with the data, especially dealing with time series data. You have to rely heavily on this particular package. Now let me generate today's date. So date dot today, that should give me today's information. You see, okay, so it's 11th 23rd of November 2022. Now this one I have to, right, so this object is still of not this form, what you see here, which is date time. So you have to convert that to, and it's pretty easy. Again, you call pd dot to underscore date time, pass this out. Let me call this as today's date. I'm storing it as a today's date, and that is it. Now, what is the step 3 of it? Okay, so this was, oh, by the way, we aren't done with step 1. Okay, so let's come back to step 1. That means we have to find last ordered date for every customer, right? How should we do that? Let's quickly see our data once more. So here, and again, the solutions that I'm going to give here will be mostly utilizing pandas vector properties or vector operations in linear form rather than through loop. I would prefer to avoid loop, although these all can be done with loop, but that's not asked. And in your interviews also, if these sort of questions are asked, they will try to see, have you used loop, or you know the pandas extensive dynamic properties, that's vector properties. So that, because it's known, it's, you don't have to explain, nobody will explain to you, but it is known. Pandas data frame is so popular because of its this linear properties, not because there are no other data structure which does not support this sort of operations. So let's quickly see that. Now I have to find the last date. How can I do that? Any idea? It's going to be pretty easy in this case. So what you can do is, you have to group by, as I said. First, you have to group by your data on customer ID. So group by on customer ID. If you don't know how to group by, just watch the videos in the description box. That will help you to understand how does group by work. And then which column you want to work with. So I want to work on order date, and then I want to pull out max. Okay, and that's my data. If you remember our previous example, okay, let's quickly go back. What was our previous example, just to validate if we have done it correctly. Okay, so the last customer that we were talking was 86225. Let's quickly check for 86225. It's not shown here. What we are going to do then? Okay, let's quickly filter on that, but we need to validate if it's working correctly, and do that every time. Even if you are sure it's correct, I would recommend do the cross validation, see with your own eyes, keep it as a proof ready, and then go to your management or to somebody else. Because a lot of the time, things will not work out in the presentation, and then you will feel embarrassed. You will lose your confidence, saying that I made mistake in my analysis. So keep do this task, always recommended. So I call this data dot df dot last order dates for, okay, I can do one more thing. I mean, I don't want this as a group by object, rather I want it as a transform. So if you don't know what's the difference between aggregation and transformation, please watch the video in the Dropbox in the description box. That should give you an idea, but I'm not going to explain all this here, but you should know. Nice. Okay, we'll validate. Just give me a minute. We are going to validate this out. So this is order date, and I call it last order date. That is it. Done. Now let's refresh this data. and have a look. Okay, so we were wrong when we said the last order for 86225. I mean, had made that assumption that if your order date is in ascending order, but my assumption was wrong. My data is not in ascending order. So let me quickly put it in ascending order so that it shouldn't be confusing. So order, sorry, yeah, it's sort by. I think now this makes sense. Now my data is certainly in ascending order, and let's quickly pick high. Okay, follow my cursor. I'm all doing my validation with respect to this customer. So this customer has last ordered, you see, in 3rd December 2021, and the max date for this customer is basically the last order date is same as the December 3, 2021. And if you see in all the rows corresponding to this customer, under column last order date, you'll see same date, which is correct. This is what I wanted. I mean, then only I can save it back as a new column to my data frame. So this is correct. Okay, I did well, so good. Now let's jump to the next step. So what is the step 3? So step 3 is basically to take difference between step 2 and step 1. So this is the result of my step 1. That I'm subtracting from today's date, and I should save it. I should save it as a new column to my data frame for future validation as well. So I'm going to save as date diff. No, it was days diff, right? Let's make it days diff quickly. And then that's a step 3. Let's quickly recheck your data. And there it goes. We have here now days difference. You see, for any particular customer, like these are all same customers here, you should have same value in, and which is correct. Why that's so? Because your last order date is same, only this date is and we are not working anymore on this date now to find the difference. We are working on this column. So since this is same across all the rows for a given customer, obviously this date will be same, which is fine. But you should know yourself. I mean, although the name might be confusing while saving your information, but you should have a proper documentation. What is the definition of each of the columns that you created? You should keep your documentation always done along with your coding, so that it happens. We are human being. We likely to forget things, and also it's likely can create sometimes confusion. So keep them documented with proper examples, sufficient examples. So at any point of time, if somebody comes back and asks you, can you explain how did you come to this conclusion? Do you have any document? You should be ready to show. Then only your analysis will be trusted by your management. The whole model of for your the project that you're working, and the particular model that you are working, that whole solo what do you say, responsibility of that will be given to you, and you'll be basically promoted as a manager or maybe contributor to that particular product. But assume even once, like maybe even once, you have been working for years, let's say, on that product. You have been doing a lot of analysis, you have been presenting many information. So far you were never caught even for the wrong information. Whatever you delivered, that was taken as God's word. But even one day, if you suddenly were asked and you could not explain, trust me, your all previous work will be doubted now. And you will not be maybe said on face, but somebody else will be hired or employed to check your previous work. If you really made mistake in past too, and you will be doubted, and your credibility will go down immediately. So it is important to check twice, thrice, fourth, and have a proper documentation before presenting your work to anybody. Maybe you do little less work, that day. But whatever you work on, you should know what you are working on, what you are trying to achieve. Do you have ample examples to convince your audience that what you are working, you know very well, right? All right. Let's quickly now go to the next step, which will be filtering out the customers which satisfies our condition of an active customer. Let's quickly jump to that. So that will be step 4. So that is filter out customers. Of course, it's not said, but it's IDs of who are inactive. And what's the definition of inactive? That means that the last order was placed a year back. Last order was placed an year back. That's the definition of an inactive customer. Is that clear? Right. Let's quickly do that. So I have this data frame. You see, on the same data frame where I had my original data, I have now almost all the data that I on which or using which I can do this task. I can achieve. I know my day's difference, which was my ultimate goal, that is available along with customer ID. And this all are possible only if you follow this vector operation or vector properties or propagation properties of the data frame. So I'm going to do this. But there's a twist if you didn't notice. If you really go and do again df.info, look at this column called days difference. That's again date, time deltas type, basically date time. So what will happen? You cannot directly you treat this days as you can say numeric data. That means you cannot use it as it is to filter your data. So what you have to do next, you have to convert it to a numeric type. Right now it is some date time type. Let's do one more step for that. I said you there will be steps for this part too, so let's do that. First I'm going to do this. I have to pull out this 492, only 492 or 601 out of this column. To do that, I'm going to use this typecasting. Let's quickly see. df dot days difference. Okay, if you're not sure how this works, let me quickly tell you what I'm going to do for every row. But first logic on every row will be this. Assuming first I'm going to convert it to a string data, and this is how it will look like. You take any example. So I'm doing all these examples on the first row. So first I'll convert it to string data. Then I'm going to split it on white space like here. Now that should give me a list of 2 values. Out of the 2 values, I'm going to pick the first one, which is this one, 492. But if you see this data is still string type, so I'm going to convert it to int type. Not that way, rather this way. I'll convert that to int type. Now what I get is a numeric type. So what I did it on a single row value, the same I'm going to do across every row. But again, not through loop, through vector properties of data frame. Let's see that. So I'll pull it out. df.this dot apply. Apply is a method. It works similar to like an for loop. However, it's much faster. So if you not sure, again, I'll leave the link for how apply is efficient in the description box. You watch it. Right. So lambda x colon str of x dot split on white space. Take the first element. Have a look. I got it for every row. Can you see? How do you know it's for every row? You can match the values, right? Few examples. So if you see that it's 492, 492. We have 3 such 492. So even we have here 3. Then we have 601, 601, and so on. But if you notice, it is still object type. As I said, it will be string type. You have to convert it to int type. Let's do that. Dot as type int. Now, if you see here, it's already converted to int type. But has this change been propagated to my original data frame? Not yet. I have to override it manually. So that's what I'm going to do next. df Okay, I do not want to change, replace or override this column. So I'll give a new name, days diff. Rather, I'll give days diff in int. Okay, so that better readability for me as well. Done. Now, next part of it says you have to find filter out, right? So let's quickly see our data once and then we'll do the next step. That's my data. You see days diff is as a time data, as I said you, and days diff int will be basically numeric form. Now, what is my next task? To filter out. So let's quickly do that. So I want only those customer where days diff int is greater than, okay, so I say 366. Right, I'm interested in inactive customers. I'm not interested in active, otherwise it will be different. So I need all those customers where days diff int is greater than 366 and even equal to, sorry, or you can say greater than 365. I'm taking a hard coded definition of an year equal to 365 days, but you can choose something else. And then I need only customer ID, right? So let's quickly check that. And there it goes, and that is it. You can now save this information, but again you need unique. That's again a good thing. So let's say n unique, not n unique, just take unique. These are the unique customers, right? So these are the customers. How many of them? 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. 9 such customers are there who have been inactive. Let's see in total how many customers who have it. So to do that, all I have to do is remove this part, and there it goes. So um, in total, I have 12 customers, out of which, as I said, so these are total customers data that we have, and this is 9. Out of them, 9 of them are inactive customers. Isn't it interesting? Let's consolidate all the codes that we have written to achieve to where we are. So here I have consolidated all the codes that we just used so far to achieve to block 58. And do you believe on your eyes? I said 10 lines, but yeah, I have not discarded right now those intermediate steps we were taking to see how our data looks like. But again, those are just a part of your analysis. But what will go to the production will be these lines, okay? So you see it's hardly 5 lines. So if you use this vector properties of data frame, you can achieve things in much lesser line. And trust me, you can give a try to my claim that you're doing the same operation using loops would require you to write many, maybe 20, more than that, 30 lines of code, many variables, and you need to push all of them to production. So hopefully you like this. And yes, if you're worried, how do I consume this information? You have to export it. You can export that using Pandas export functions to any form, like maybe mostly Excel form it can be. And then you can share that Excel to your manager or to the audiences with whom you want to share with, right? So that is all about part A. of question 3. I will stop it here to keep this video short. Let's see you again in part B of question 3. Till then, you have a happy learning.